Hi, I'm Daniel Andrews, owner and creator of the DAN Show, and welcome to my latest 2022 NFL preview video. Today, I'm breaking down the Chicago Bears, and here's how my videos work. I start off with 3 things I like about the Chicago Bears, followed by 3 things I don't like about the Bears. Then I break down the schedule, go over the yearly win total odds, and then I reveal at the end if I'm going to put action down on the Chicago Bears. But before the show starts, if you're new here and you like football, hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out, really helps the community out. It's a great community. Be a part of it. It's fantastic. Now, let's start the show. The first thing I like about the Chicago Bears is David Montgomery. Now, last year the Bears won 6 games. 5 of those wins, David Montgomery had 20 or more touches in those games. Now, he did miss 4 games last year, and the Bears were 1-3 in those games. But this is maybe the most underrated running back in all of football. If you had to make a top 10 running back list, more than likely you left David Montgomery off that list, but you shouldn't. This is one of the best football players in the National Football League, maybe the most underrated running back. In order for the Bears to be successful, he's got to have a big year. He's one of my favorite players in all of football. The second thing I like about the Bears is they have some studs on defense. Last year, the Bears were 22nd in points allowed, but 6th in yards. And I'm not saying that the Bears defense doesn't have work to do, but they got studs on all 3 levels. Robert Quinn set a franchise record with 18.5 sacks last year. Eddie Jackson is one of the best safeties in football. And how Roquan Smith has not gone to a Pro Bowl is a complete mystery. This is one of the 5 best linebackers in the National Football League. This guy is really, really good, folks. Why he hasn't gone to a Pro Bowl really baffles me. Now, they are switching defensive schemes, and even though they're switching schemes, I think this defense is going to be really good. Now, keep in mind, there was trade talk regarding Robert Quinn, and usually when there's talk of a star player being traded, there's usually something to it. But as of right now, I'm counting Robert Quinn as a Bear because he currently is on the Bears roster as I'm making this video. Now, this also goes hand in hand with the third thing I like about the Chicago Bears, and that is I really like their draft. Now, before the draft started, I was really prepared not to like the Bears draft. However, I ended up being wrong and really liking what they did. Now, they didn't have a first-round pick thanks to trading up for Justin Fields, and that ended up being the 7th pick in the draft. But the Bears ended up getting 2 players in the 2nd round that easily could have gone in the 1st round. Now, I like using our lads to look at depth charts, and our lads has both these guys starting. I'm not sure that both of their 2nd round picks are going to be day 1 starters, but they are going to play quite a bit in 2022. It wouldn't surprise me if they end up being starters sometime in 2022, but I'm not sure that they're day 1 starters, but they are going to help this team quite a bit this year. And one of the disagreements I have with our lads is that they have the Bears' 5th round pick as a starting left tackle. I'm almost positive he's not going to start day 1, but the Bears drafted 4 offensive linemen late in the draft, and offensive line was a position the Bears needed to address. Because these were all late round picks, 4 of them don't need to make the team, but even if 2 of them make the team as backups, then it was a success. 3rd round pick Velvis Jones is going to be a special teams demon. This guy is going to be a stud on special teams, but I'm not really sure how much or even where he plays on offense, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if he ends up being a Pro Bowl special teams player. So I really liked their draft despite not having a 1st round pick. And just to recap the 3 things I liked about the Chicago Bears, the underrated David Montgomery, studs on all 3 levels of defense, and even without a 1st round pick, a really good draft. Now, 3 things I don't like about the Chicago Bears. Now, spoiler alert, all 3 things I don't like revolve around the offense. And the first thing I don't like is the Justin Fields development. Now, I want to be very clear. It's not Justin Fields, but particularly the way he was used last year. I think the Bears couldn't have handled his development worse. I mean, this is a guy who really should have sat his whole rookie season. They inserted him in. Basically, what the Bears did last year, they couldn't have done a worse job. So now, year 2, you have a new system, a new coaching staff, and this is still an exceptionally raw quarterback. Really, the Bears might be better off signing Jimmy G, which as I'm making this video, he's still with the San Francisco 49ers, and have Justin Fields sit for a year and learn this new offense and just learn what it takes to be an NFL quarterback, you have to realize this probably isn't going to happen. Justin Fields probably going to start day one. If you're a Bears fan, you got to realize this kid's not NFL ready and is going to need time to develop. And you combine that with the second thing I don't like, and that is the Bears' offensive line situation. Now, again, our lads has the starting left tackle as a rookie. I think it's going to be Tevin Jenkins. Now, Tevin Jenkins was slated to be the starting left tackle as a rookie coming out of Oklahoma State, but he had that back surgery in preseason, so they had signed Jason Peters out of retirement to start at left tackle at the beginning of the 2021 season. Now, fully healthy, Tevin Jenkins will be the starting left tackle to the best of my knowledge. And I really liked him coming out of Oklahoma State, but I saw a guy who's a guard or maybe a right tackle. I didn't see an NFL left tackle, but this is a guy I really did like. I just didn't see an NFL left tackle. Now, on the right side, our lads in ESPN both had fifth-round pick Larry Borom from last year, so last year's fifth-round rookie to start at right tackle. Now, ESPN and our lads have a difference of opinion on the right guard, but they both had the center to be a free agent from Green Bay who played guard the last couple of years. So bottom line, going into the season, you have an inexperienced offensive line with several new starters. To start the season, this is definitely a bottom 10 offensive line, but they do have potential. However, I expect some growing pains, and you combine that with a really raw young quarterback, and then you combine that with the third thing I don't like about the Chicago Bears, and that is a first-time offensive coordinator. Now, the Bears head coach is a first-time head coach, a rookie head coach, and he's a former defensive coordinator who brings with him from Indianapolis, the Indianapolis secondary coach, a guy who was a former defensive coordinator. So I like what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball, even though they're switching schemes to a 4-3 defense. I really like what they're going to do on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that they'll be successful, and the Bears will have a good defense this year. But you bring in a first-time head coach, a former defensive coordinator, and he brings with him a first-time offensive coordinator. That's combined with the two things I already mentioned. That's a lot to ask. Now, Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator, was the quarterback coach the last 3 years in Green Bay, and I love that you poach a coach from a division rival. That's always a good thing. But coaching Aaron Rodgers is night and day different than coaching Justin Fields. And keep in mind, look what Getsy had in Green Bay. Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator, he's now the head coach in Denver. And then you also had Matt LaFleur, an offensive-minded head coach. Here in Chicago, the situation couldn't be more different. You have Aaron Rodgers with a bad offensive line. That's really not that big of a deal. Justin Fields with a bad offensive line is a completely different situation. Now, this could work out. Luke Getsy may be an offensive mastermind. That's yet to be seen. But bottom line, you couldn't put a rookie offensive coordinator into a worse position to be in this year. So Luke Getsy, you got a big challenge ahead of you this year. Now, just to recap the three things I don't like about the Chicago Bears, the Justin Fields development, the offensive line situation, and Luke Getsy, hey, welcome to being an offensive coordinator. You're in a bad spot or a tough spot. Now, let's break down the schedule. I go over the yearly win total odds, and then I reveal if I'm going to put action down on the Chicago Bears. Now, for most teams, this would be a very favorable schedule. You open the season at home. Then you have a late season bye. After the bye, you got 3 out of your 4 final games are at home, with the lone road game, a very winnable one, at Detroit. However, I see the Bears struggling early in the season and opening the season hosting San Francisco, then going to Green Bay week 2. I really see Chicago starting the season 0-2. Now, week 7's interesting. You have a Monday night game at New England. But you played the previous week at home on Thursday night against Washington, where week 6, New England will travel to Cleveland to play a Sunday game. So that's kind of a neat little advantage the schedule makers provided for the Bears. And then I also see a nice 4-game stretch, weeks 9 through 12. You got 2 home games versus Miami and Detroit, followed by 2 winnable road games at Atlanta and at the New York Jets. Philly actually travels to play the New York Giants week 14, where Chicago has a bye. Another neat advantage the schedule makers provided. Week 17, both Chicago and Detroit play Saturday games week 16, so there's no advantage there. Bottom line, this is a really favorable schedule for the Bears. And the yearly win total odds is 6.5 with heavy action on the under. Now, someone I follow put some heavy action on under 7 wins for the Bears, and most people I know in the gambling community love the under for the Bears. But Barstool and Caesar Sports app, both apps that I use, have really horrible numbers for the Bears right now. It's a negative 141 for Barstool and negative 150 for the Bears. So these are horrible numbers. I actually think that this number is going to drop to 6, maybe even 5.5 before the season starts. So if you like the over for whatever reason, wait as long as you possibly can, because you might be able to get something as low as 5.5 before the season starts. But I can almost promise you that this is going to drop from 6.5. I don't know if it gets all the way down to 5.5, but I guarantee you can find 6 before the season starts. Now, personally, I do like under 6.5, but those numbers are terrible. And I also think this defense is going to be really good. As a general rule of thumb, I don't like betting on first-time rookie head coaches. Bottom line, you never know what to expect. This offense could be the worst offense in the National Football League, but I do think the defense is going to be pretty good. And this schedule is extremely favorable. So if you're taking under, I want to warn you, because you have a good defense and a favorable schedule. So you've been warned about taking under here, but under 6.5 would probably be my play. Now, this is my opinion. This is what I think. I really want to hear from you. What do you think the Chicago Bears are going to do this year? Drop a comment below. Let's talk football. Now, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Like the video. Give me the thumbs up. Ring the bell. That way you're notified every time I come out with a new video. Tomorrow, I am breaking down the Atlanta Falcons. So I will see you tomorrow.